This was never meant to be a video. I had no plans for it to be that. It started as a conversation. It was a real deep talk. You know those conversations you have with friends that just they end up being unexpectedly profound and they really stick with you beyond just the immediate moment. And it was a conversation about why we create as a whole and also on an individual level why I create, why I do what I do, why I make videos and what we're all sort of searching for underneath that noise. And in some weird kind of synchronicity type of way, it tied in with a lot of what's been on my mind recently, and it articulated a lot of the kind of unknown that I didn't know was lingering within my psyche. I hadn't quite given that stuff a name, I hadn't quite really dived into it. I just knew that there was a thought there, and it was kind of just germinating, and I was happy leaving it at that. I guess what I'm trying to say here is enjoy this video. I'm not sure I'll ever do something like this again. I hope it somehow helps you. I hope it gets you to think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything I do discuss down below. But it's different, and you'll understand how and why. But anyway, without further ado, let's begin. There's a line in Under the Silver Lake, which is a fantastic movie I only just got around to watching recently. Highly recommend it, especially if you like your hidden symbolism and deeper layers of meaning. But there's a line in the movie that lodged itself somewhere deep inside of me. Pause. A friend tells the main character, there used to be a time when any idiot could walk through a forest and basically stumble onto something new, discover some kind of hidden path or a secret, or, like a fragment of the divine disguised as bark and wind. If you ever grew up playing video games, you'll know what this is kind of getting at. It's that feeling that there is like some kind of quest, that there's some sort of meaning, purpose behind what you're doing. You're given an objective, you have to go from A to B, and in the process of getting from A to B, you discover parts of the world that haven't been discovered. You unlock new caves, new dungeons. I'm thinking Skyrim, Oblivion, RuneScape, those sorts of games. But anyway, something new, something hidden. And he's right. That friend who tells the main character that in the movie is absolutely right. That time feels long gone. And I think that's why so many of us feel this kind of quiet ache that we can't quite name, the sense that something essential has slipped away, right? Meaning, wonder, the pulse beneath all this noise. When everything is mapped, measured, and monetized, it's very easy to forget what any of it is actually for. Let's move away from the idea of a forest for now and fast forward to 2025, right? The forests have been replaced by feeds. Our myths have been replaced by algorithms. We no longer stumble into mystery, we scroll past it. Even when it's staring us in the face, we ignore it. But it isn't just the internet's fault. It's kind of like the architecture of an age that worships everything it can measure. Industrialization, for example, taught us to trade wonder for efficiency. Consumerism convinced us that desire could be satisfied with ownership. Hyper-individualism, the enemy of people, really, of any sort of real connection, has turned communion into competition. We have built a civilization that can reach Mars, if you believe in that, but rarely each other. In other words, we've mapped the Earth, right? I think it's fair to say that everything on planet Earth has been discovered, maybe apart from the deep seas, but I'll leave the safe hands of NASA to do that job. And that is obviously sarcasm for my American audience. We've mapped the Earth and we've lost the territory of the soul in the process. We do not live in an age of discovery anymore. We live in an age of simulation. We have built a mirror world, and it's one where the image matters more than the essence. We've turned experiences into content, we've somehow turned memories into data, and people into profiles. We've replaced the physical forest with the digital one, and then we wonder why the leaves don't rustle when we breathe. Now, the mystics once warned that illusion would one day wear the mask of truth. And that day came quietly, packaged in convenience. Manly P. Hall himself said, "The light that blinds rather than illuminates is false light, and man, deceived by it, mistakes brilliance for truth." We no longer need to believe in magic or anything else. We just need to believe in the algorithm. That is the times that we live in. We live in a period of history where curiosity has been commodified, where mystery has been turned into metrics. We no longer wonder for wisdom, we Google for answers, or worse, if you're a bot, you chat GPT them. We no longer follow the stars, we follow accounts. We don't chase enlightenment, we chase engagement, we chase the appearance of enlightenment. How many self-proclaimed enlightened folk actually embody that? How many religious people actually embody it? It's strange. We know more about black holes now than we do about our own hearts. We've mapped the edges of the observable universe, yet most people have never ventured into the dark matter of their own mind. We chase the origins of creation, but ignore the origin of our own thoughts. We can see galaxies billions of light years away, but struggle to look one another in the eyes for more than a few seconds. We have access to every truth humanity has ever known, and yet we've never been more disconnected from meaning. Why? The old explorers crossed oceans. The new explorers scroll through endless waves of simulation, praying to glimpse something real amidst the current of bullshit. And that's why creation matters now more than ever. It's one of the last acts that still belongs to the soul, in my opinion. In a world obsessed with copying, to create something authentic
is a form of rebellion.
To express something true is to pierce the illusion, and to feel awe again is to remember that you're still alive. And yet beneath all of that noise, all of that static, I'm almost reminded of this kind of faint heartbeat underneath all the bullshit that whispers to me, remember. Remember the forest, remember the mystery, remember that discovery isn't dead, it only changed its address. Listen, the outer world may be mapped, alright? We may have discovered everything on planet Earth, in the physical material world, but the inner world is still wilderness. That's where the new explorers go now, inward, through all the digital noise, back toward the mystery hiding in their own chest. Meaning isn't extinct, it's just buried under information. And those who still ache for it are the last remaining mystics of a world that forgot how to pray. Some days it hits me while I'm doing something painfully ordinary and painfully human, to be honest. Refreshing an inbox, replying to emails, just meaningless soul-draining tasks, right? Taking things from one list to another, whatever. A quiet question kind of makes its way into my head. Was I really made for this? Is my purpose in life to be doing this? And it isn't so much despair, it's not laziness to do with the job. I've always been called a hard worker. It's the soul remembering that motion is not the same as meaning. Existing isn't the same as being alive. I'm not the first person to say this, by the way. I don't want this to come across as like, I don't know, some enlightened rant or whatever the case. Like, many people have said this point before, okay? But it's painfully true. Meaning isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. I would honestly argue it. It's what keeps us moving forward through the fog. Without meaning, the body continues but the spirit stalls. We chase stimulation and we mistake it for aliveness. But stimulation is basically a sugar high. It comes and goes. Aliveness is a slow burning flame. It's steady, it's honest, and it demands your fucking attention. We scroll for connection and we find simulation. We chase certainty and we get anxiety. We fill every silence, then wonder why we can't hear ourselves think. Meaning gives gravity to the ordinary. It turns just another sunrise into a damn ceremony. It's what makes pain purposeful and beauty almost unbearable. The void we feel isn't failure, it's invitation. It's the blank canvas before the next creation, the divine pausing, waiting for us to pick up the brush. Long before this world of skyscrapers and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all these social networks, our ancestors gathered around firelight and they told stories to survive the vastness of the night. Right? When lightning cracked, they imagined God speaking. When the harvest came, they celebrated as if heaven itself had leaned down to feed them. Now, this was not ignorance, it was intimacy. You see, these stories weren't just entertainment, they were maps of meaning, guiding souls through the chaos of day-to-day life. Myth gave us direction when the world felt too big to understand. It made existence personal. We've outgrown the campfire, yeah, but not the hunger that burned beside it. We still crave myth, we still crave initiation, transcendence, only now we look for them in movies and in music and in dreams and all these sorts of things. We idolize superheroes, influencers, I say that in quotation marks because I still to this day
Don't know what the fuck they're influencing.
icons, I'm thinking athletes, movie stars, etc. And it isn't because we believe they're gods, but it's because we're desperate for reminders that we could be more than flesh and noise. But the ancient ones never meant for us to worship heroes, only to recognize them as mirrors. And I'm reminded here of the hero's journey, which was never a story about a particular hero. Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, right? I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. It wasn't about them, it was about you. Every myth, every quest, right? Every death and resurrection, it was a coded message about the human spirit remembering its own divinity. When myth faded, marketing took its place. We stopped living stories and we started consuming them instead. And yet, somewhere deep down, the hunger never died. In my opinion, that's what creation feeds. It's the kind of mythic hunger for meaning that no civilization has ever silenced. It's a core part of who we are. Every artist is, in some way, tending the fire our ancestors once sat around, keeping the night alive with stories that remind us who we are, who we've been, and who we could become. When I create, that silence finally answers back. It can be anything. If I'm editing a video like this one, if I'm designing a thumbnail, if I am thinking to myself whilst editing a video, what image or video, best reflects the words I'm speaking. Anything that gets me to think creatively. It feels like there's movement inside me. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like a living current. Not ancient or distant, but it's immediate. It fuels me in the moment. It's like electricity remembering its own source. Creation isn't self-expression, it's self-revelation. The universe learning its own name through you. In that moment, time dissolves. The eye loosens, only pulse remains. And it's in that space that the ego and the spirit negotiate a kind of peace, where the noise quiets, but the current speaks. And I think that's what the mystics meant when they said art is prayer. Every act of genuine creation is a bridge between worlds, between seen and unseen, finite and infinite. As above, so below, as many of you know, it was never about hierarchy or structure, it was about reflection. Every true act of making mirrors the greater whole, the macro expressed in miniature as the micro. When Michelangelo carved David, he said the statue was already living inside the marble, he was simply freeing it. And to me, that's a poignant example of what creation feels like. It's uncovering what's already there, waiting to breathe. You see, the divine doesn't hide in temples. I believe it hides in the moments when you forget yourself long enough to become a vessel. It hides in that instant when an idea takes form, and you feel, for just a second, that you and the universe are on speaking terms again, one, connected together. And in those moments, creation stops being something that you just do, and it becomes something that you are. There's no negotiation, it's just a dialogue between the finite hand and the infinite spark that moves it. When I was a child, nothing was ordinary. I'm sure a lot of you will be able to relate to this. A stick could become a sword, alright? A chair was a spaceship. My small bedroom could contain entire galaxies, worlds. I didn't have to pretend any of this, I believed. Then comes school, then comes logic and rules and society and all the bullshit that comes with it. We trade imagination for correctness, we trade wonder for productivity. We learn to see through filters, expectation, fear, proof, and with every little grow-up moment, the world shrinks just a little bit. We used to carve gods from stone, now we build them from metal and light. But truthfully, not just technology, we've always built them. Not just out there, but in here. Every culture creates its own pantheon. Think about it like this: before algorithms, there were altars. Before screens, there were scriptures. Before notifications, there were commandments. and before digital idols, there were cultural ones. We've always been told who to love, who to fear, what to believe, what to become. So yeah, the algorithm is responsible for a lot of programming nowadays, don't get me wrong, but it didn't invent programming, it just perfected it. Society, religion, education, even family, each one writes its own code into the soft clay of a child's mind. And now some of that programming, I'm not going to sit here and say it's all bad, some of it protects us, but some of it also poisons us. And some of it makes us forget we ever had a choice. We are born infinite and then slowly conditioned into something measurable. Grades, status, obedience, success. We inherit dreams that aren't even ours, beliefs we never questioned, and fears that once belonged to someone else. Carl Jung once said that the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. By the time we're grown, we can recite the script perfectly. On paper we're fine, but most of us have forgotten the author. That's why creation matters. Because every honest act of making is an act of rebellion, a moment of remembering the voice beneath all the programming, the self beneath the persona. The ancient gods demanded sacrifice. So do the modern ones. Only now we offer our silence, our focus, and our wonder. We give them the moments that could have been spent listening to the quiet voice within us, the one that still knows how to pray. But here's the truth, and I say this confidently, I say this as almost a prediction for the direction we're heading in. No institution, no algorithm, no ideology, no AI can simulate mystery. None of it can. No system can replicate awe because awe is unprofitable. It doesn't click, it doesn't convert, and it doesn't scale. So creation then, I'm going to say this for the third time, becomes rebellion, to make something not for attention but for meaning. That's worship in its purest modern form. That's lighting a candle in the temple of your own heart while the rest of the world stares at their screens. For now we see through a glass darkly. 1 Corinthians 13:12, one of my favorite scriptures. That verse always felt less like scripture to me and more like diagnosis. The child's sight wasn't wrong. It was unburdened. He didn't divide real from imagined because imagination was simply reality seen from the inside. When I create now, I catch a glimpse of that vision again. Form loosens into spirit and meaning flickers through the ordinary. It's as if the curtain lifts for a moment and I remember how alive everything really is. And you'll know if you create yourself, if you do something, anything along these lines, any kind of artistic pursuit, you'll know what I'm talking about here. I think maybe creation isn't returning to the child, it's becoming the adult who can hold that same wonder, but this time with awareness, to see clearly and still believe. Because in that quiet, the noise fades, and what's left feels otherworldly, it feels ancient. It's a presence beneath the ordinary, and it's vast, it's alive, and it's listening. And in that instant, when you breathe, guess what? It breathes back. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about why I create. And if I'm being honest, it isn't always pure. There isn't always like this grand ideal behind it. Maybe that's a downside of knowing myself as well as I do. But I'd rather just be honest about it, because the truth is sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's selfish, sometimes it's very human. Sometimes it's led by my egoic self. And to be honest with you, at this stage of my journey, there is a weird comfort in that. To know that part of me still exists, I don't mind it. You see, part of me wants to be seen. Part of me fears disappearing. I don't think I've said this publicly, but I do feel as though I walk between worlds, the seen and the unseen, the human and the spirit. And these egoic kind of motivations offer me an opportunity to ground myself. They remind me that even light needs shadows to take form. So perhaps redemption doesn't mean killing the ego. Perhaps it means giving it better work. Don't forget the ego, it plays its role as well. Yeah, we want to integrate it, but not everything about it is negative. Ego gives fire, and spirit gives light. One without the other burns out or fades away. I feel like when I create, those forces meet. It's the masculine urge to build, shape, and define, and that kind of intertwines with the feminine current of inspiration and flow and surrender. The hunger to be seen becomes a doorway for the unseen to move through. I hope you're beginning to see how all of this is connected. The personal becomes a passage to the universal, as above so below, as within so without. Creation reconciles what I am with what I could be. It reminds me I'm more than flesh and structure and repetition and all this other bullshit that comes with human life, that something alive still stirs beneath the static. This isn't forgiveness for a sin, okay? It's remembrance of source. Each honest act of making redeems a fragment of the world from forgetfulness, especially when you're connected to that source and you make it from that frequency, from that state of being. There's a quiet truth that most people will never tell you about creating, but if you're familiar with my works on alchemy, you will know exactly what I'm about to say. It often begins in pain. The best work does not come from getting it right, it comes from being alive, from living. From heartbreak that had nowhere to go, from fear that needed form, from failure that demanded translation. Every blank page asks you the same quiet question. Will you still try even when you don't feel ready? And that's where the alchemy begins. Because the artist's true craft isn't paint or camera or pen, it's transmutation. Creation is the act of turning suffering into signal, literally. Taking the raw material of confusion or grief or longing and refining it into something that means something to someone else. What a gift. When you transform pain into beauty, you've remembered what the alchemists called the great work, to turn lead into gold, shadow into light, and the ordinary human story into something that breathes. The moments that almost break you are the same moments that teach your soul how to sing. Pain does not disqualify you from creating. I actually believe it initiates you into it, because creation isn't about transcending life or escaping it, it's about metabolizing it. It's about letting the wound become the womb for something new. And I guess that's part of the reason I create, the why behind it all, the reason I even wanted to make this video. Brick by brick, video by video, it's my way of remembering and maybe helping others remember too. Giving the invisible form, breathing light into that forgotten divine spark that dimmed the moment we put on this human mask. Every frame, every sound, every word, it becomes a small act of remembrance. And not just for me, though I do benefit from it, but for anyone who's forgotten that meaning still breathes beneath it all. You know, it's been just over 2 years since I created this channel, or at least at the time of recording. And what I've come to realize is, I think what I want most for people is just to feel. I don't want people to agree with me. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't care if you agree or disagree. I don't want people to analyze either. I mean, you can, sure, but it's not the why behind why I create. I just want you to feel. Feeling bypasses intellect. That's why mystery schools spoke in symbols, not to teach the mind, but to stir the memory of the soul. Symbols slip past logic and they speak directly to what remembers. Think of it like this, a single image can hold what 1,000 essays can't. You ever see a painting that's so fucking beautiful, a painting that is so haunting, so daunting, that it stays trapped within your mind for days after? That painting tells a story that no amount of words can. It evokes feelings within you that no amount of words can. A melody can move grief that words keep trapped. A gesture, a look, a tone. All of them say, Akaro, I've been where you are. You're not alone in the dark. And when I create, that's the language I'm trying to speak. I think that's also why I've always loved cinema. I think a lot of you will be able to relate to this. It speaks in the invisible language, and again, it goes straight to the soul. You don't necessarily have to understand a film to feel it, and I think for me that's a beautiful thing. Great art stands the test of time. Why? Because it gives form to something that isn't bound by the physical. It's something that exists beyond logic, beyond even the artists themselves. It's the soul remembering itself through story, sound, and light. Leonardo da Vinci, he drew machines that shouldn't have been possible because he was conversing with possibility itself. Michelangelo chipped away stone until the divine within it exhaled. Nikola Tesla saw entire inventions fully formed in his mind, felt them first, then let the intellect follow. Beethoven, deaf, wrote symphonies he could no longer hear, proving the music was never merely just sound, it was emotion translated into vibration. They all trusted feeling more than formula. They let their hearts lead and made the mind a servant. That's what I want my work to do. I don't want to make people think what I think. Cool if you do, amazing if I help you, but not the point. I want to help you feel what you may have forgotten you can even feel. I hope that doesn't go over anyone's heads. I can't tell you for certain whether heaven is a place or a state. I can theorize about it, sure, but I can't tell you for certain, and if anyone says that, they're lying. It could be both, maybe neither, I don't know. No one does, not until you finally pass. But through the esoteric lens, heaven stops being an escape and it becomes an embodiment. It isn't something you reach, it's something you reveal. And I love this notion. Heaven happens each time the divine breaks through your humanity. When you create something sincere, for example, a film, a poem, when you give a gesture of compassion to someone else, you show compassion to them through something you do. Every breath of awareness that you breathe, that you take, you pull a thread of heaven down into the weave of earth. Every act of creation is the infinite remembering itself through the finite, and every honest expression is a small resurrection of the soul. Therefore, one of the core reasons, something that's been on my mind, meaning might not be something we find, it might be something we make. And creation is how we find it, it's how we make it. You don't need to flee the world to be spiritual. You need to love it enough to reshape it, one truthful act at a time. And if I'm being honest, I think every artist is trying to save themselves, but in doing so, we end up saving each other. When you see someone speak truth through creation, when they bleed beauty or honesty onto a page or a stage, something inside you stirs. You recognize yourself in them. I just experienced this myself. A good friend of mine, Alex, or as many of you may know him, Irrevelato, dropped a video titled, "What if God wrote you a letter?" I watched that video and I was still thinking about it days later, and it isn't because of, or it wasn't, I should say, because of the content itself, not because of how he put together the video or the production or anything like that. It was the meaning infused within his words. It spoke to me beyond just English in a language that felt real. I felt it. I didn't have to it wasn't the language itself. That wasn't what it was conveying to me. It was the message, the feeling underneath all of it. That's why it stuck with me. Art is a mirror that reflects not just the creator, but the collective. It whispers that you are not alone in the dark. That ache you feel has a shape, and it matters. Vincent van Gogh, one of the most famous painters of all time. Look at what his work means to people nowadays. Look at how it stood the test of time. Fucking beautiful. When someone creates something honest, they become like a lighthouse. They stand at the edge of their own pain, and they hold up a light so that others can find their way back home. And I think that's the great secret that every creator eventually learns. Your most personal truth is always your most universal one. The deeper you go into yourself, the closer you come to everyone else. Maybe that's what this whole thing has been about all along. Not the algorithm, not perfection, communion. The return to shared feeling in a world that basically numbs you. To make something real is to invite others back into reality. To feel is to remind others that they can feel too. I think that's how the soul recognizes itself through another's eyes, a mirror that the world forgot. I've never shared this before with anyone, not even my close friends, let alone online. I've got this little, I call it a creator's reminder. It's what I read to myself before I create. Kind of like a ritual, a small one, not a literal one. It steadies my hands and I guess it just grounds me. It reminds me what this really is about. Before I begin, I remember why I create. I do not make to impress, to prove, or to escape. I create to remember. Through my hands, the invisible becomes visible. Through my voice, the forgotten spark breathes again. I am not seeking meaning in the world, I am infusing the world with meaning. Every frame, every word, every rhythm I shape is a bridge between heaven and earth, between the child who believed and the adult learning to believe again. I carry the mystery within me. I am the one who reintroduces wonder. And this act, this moment of creation, is my prayer. It's my offering, it's my way of remembering the divine through form. So I begin not to be seen, but to see. Not to escape the world, but to awaken it. Now, this whole video, the way it came about, the conversation I had with my friend originally, all of it began with the question, what is the meaning of all of this? We were talking about how some days the world just feels fucking flat, right? As if all of the magic has been drained from it. I'm sure we've all had days like that. But maybe the emptiness isn't punishment. Maybe it's like a blank page. Because one thing I've realized is what really lasts in this life isn't knowledge. Don't get me wrong, knowledge will stand the test of time. As it has done, there is nothing new under the sun. Shout out to Mark Passio. But it's also feeling. Feeling is what survives individual moments of consciousness. I don't remember every good moment from past relationships. I don't remember every bad one either. All I remember was how the other person made me feel. Right? The smaller little details fade, but the impact doesn't. And that's what art does too. It lingers. It leaves an emotional imprint long after the image fades. Perhaps that's the secret to meaning itself. It isn't what we know, but what we make others feel. Every time I sit down to create, I honestly feel that same pulse I felt as a child. It's the only thing I've really discovered that takes me back to that moment. The same current that spins the stars and still hums quietly behind the heart. Creation teaches me that meaning isn't something we wait for, it's something we weave into whatever our hands touch. It's the quiet miracle of making. It turns a life of survival into a life of significance. And I'm not saying that is something everyone should be aiming for, but it certainly ticks off that box. It turns just boring repetition of the human life and society that we find ourselves, it turns it into a beautiful kind of ritual, a reminder, a doorway from the ordinary into the divine. So if you ever feel numb, or you feel lost or disconnected, and these are normal things to feel with the way the world is currently set up, my advice to you would be, don't wait for purpose to arrive in some grand revelation. That's just not how it goes. Make something. Make anything. A line of text, a sound, a video, fucking a light turned on in a dark room. Anything. Meaning isn't found. It's forged. And creation is the forge itself. Every act of making is a rebellion against forgetting, a spark thrown in the vastness saying, I was here. Because when you shape something with love, you echo the first act of creation itself. The same fire that birthed galaxies burns quietly in your chest, waiting for your courage to breathe it into form. So create, not to be remembered, but to remember. To remind the world what it feels like to be alive, because every time you make something real, the divine remembers itself through you, and for one living moment, the universe remembers itself. When was the last time you made something that made you feel alive? Again, not for attention, not for approval, not with any sort of human egoic expectation in mind, but just to feel and just to remember that spark again. I guess that's the invitation. To bring a little more light into the world, to remember through the act itself that the divine was never absent, only waiting for your hands, because when we create, and when you create, God breathes through you, and for a single heartbeat, eternity remembers your name. As I said, guys, I don't know if I'll ever make another video like this again. It was a message that I just felt compelled to get out. The synchronicities that led up to this was just crazy. I had the conversation, and I mentioned this on the community tab, and it was amazing. And I was thinking afterward, man, I wish I could have recorded this just so I can, for myself, really refer back to it, journal my thoughts down on a few specific points of the convo. Guess what? Turns out the entire thing was recorded. Like, can you fucking believe that? The entire thing was recorded. A keyword was triggered on my laptop, which ended up recording. I mean, it missed the first couple of minutes, but the majority, the bulk of it was recorded. And so I was able to listen back, write down my notes, and then formulate everything that we discussed into I guess more of a story for YouTube and whatnot. Beautiful how it came together. I guess I'll end it with, if you did enjoy, please be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.